Hey, Joey. Joey, I want to chat with you on this. Good morning. My name is Jim Ports, and I'm chairman of the Maryland Transportation Authority Board, and I hereby call this meeting of the MDTA Board to order at 9 a.m. This morning, we're having our meeting in person at MDTA headquarters, and in accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being live streamed on the MDTA board webpage. I would like to say welcome to all the members and staff who join us today, and for the record, member Dante Carroll is joining us via conference call. As a reminder, I ask anyone who is in the room with us this morning to refrain from speaking unless you're presenting or answering questions to avoid background noise on live stream. There are no members of the public, no elected officials, and no media who have pre-registered to comment at this morning's meeting. For those of you who are watching this meeting via live stream, we have posted the materials of today's meeting on the MDTA board webpage so that you can follow along if you would like. We'll now begin with today's agenda. We will go to agenda item number 1, approval of the minutes.
This is Mario. I will move to approve the open session meeting minutes of July 28, 2022.
Okay, it's been approved. I have a second. And seconded for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next order of business is approval of closed session meetings. I'll entertain a motion.
Member Cox, move for approval. Second.
It's been approved and seconded for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next order of business is resolutions, years of service recognition. Will Pines?
Well, good morning, members. For the record, my name is Will Pines, Executive Director for the MDTA, and this morning I'm going to highlight that we're going to recognize the resolutions for retirements for First Sergeant John Irwin and Corporal Kenneth Withrow. These resolutions will be recorded into the minutes.
Okay. Great, thank you, Will. Next order of business is approval of contract awards. So it's J01P2600128, two-way communication radios for police vehicles, and MDTA 2019-01B, construction management and inspection services, SBR contract. Donna DeCervo.
Good morning, Donna DeCervo for the record. We have two contracts as Jim mentioned. The first is the two-way encrypted communication radios for police vehicles. This was a purchase order request for proposal off the communications contract. It's a state do-it master contract. We did advertise this to 10 master contractors. However, we only received a single bid. We did reach out to the master contractors to find out why they didn't bid. Unfortunately, none of them responded. We did do a fair and reasonable determination. We are receiving 30% off of MSRP. We compared it to the NASPO contract and the New Jersey contract, and our percentage is higher, as NASPO was receiving 27% and New Jersey was receiving, 25%. We're recommending award to Motorola Solutions for $393,224.88. This is a one-time purchase, and there were no MBE or VSBE goals or SBR determination, and no protests were received.
Any discussion? Any of the members? Entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
It's been moved and second for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
All right, Donna?
The next contract is 2019-01B. This is a small business reserve designated contract for construction management and inspection services. Just to familiarize you guys with, when we do these large A&E contracts, we now carve out a small SBR contract for them, and this is that contract. This is, we did receive 8 proposals on this small business contract, so competition was fierce. So we're very happy about that. We advertised it in September of 2019. It has a 5-year term. It had a 25% MBE goal, a 6% sub-goals for African American, 2% for Hispanic American, 9% for women-owned, and a 1% VSBE. There were no protests received, and we're recommending award to O'Connell and Lawrence, and in the amount of $2 million. So this is a one award contract, although we did get lots of competition on it. So we're very happy with the outcome.
Great. Any questions or?
I have a question. How do you qualify for this contract?
How do you
How
qualify?
do you qualify?
SBR.
SBR.
So you don't have to be a small business to bid, but you have to be a small business to be awarded a contract. So you have to be certified as a small business veteran, a small business with the through eMaryland Marketplace as well, and you have to meet the criteria. So there are certain criteria for different categories of work. It's a self-certification program, but DGS does audit these programs and go out to the vendors to ensure that they do, in fact, meet the criteria.
I guess there's a max fine you can do a year.
Yeah, it's
depending
based
on
on
the type of business.
number of dollars for the past 3 fiscal years, number of dollars and/or employees. I don't have it right here in front of me, but I can certainly get you that information, Member Gaines.
Yeah, I was actually going to add, if I may, this was actually a request to Capital Committee that we provide a summary of the different programs, DBE, MBE, VSBE, and SBR to kind of make clear what the dollar thresholds, when graduations occur. We reached out to our Civil Rights Department to ask to put together that presentation at a future meeting, and we'll provide that to the board.
Yeah, I believe it, there's different thresholds for different types of businesses. So construction, it might be a higher threshold, for example. But, so we have the DBE, which is a federal program. We have the MBE, which is a state program. And the SBR, Small Business Reserve Program, is a state program that the Board of Public Works is really pushing hard for us to recognize more small businesses to try and get them contracts so that they can become larger businesses, if you will, because we're all trying to build business and jobs. As you know, the Governor Hogan has said a few times that Maryland's open for business, and this is one of those initiatives where they're really pushing hard. And I'll be honest with you, the Department of Transportation is probably leading that effort with small business reserve contracts, and we have been recognized by BPW for that effort. So this is a great program to help smaller businesses get larger, help them employ more people, which is going to only help Maryland move forward economically. But we'll be happy to get all that other information for you. There are a lot of different thresholds, believe me.
So related to the MBE participation within, for this one company that's in the SBR, since the nature and timing of the services for this contract are variable, how can we ensure that the percentages are going to be met? Since, I mean, they may, I don't know what was in the contract, so they may have slated someone in, Hispanic American at 5%, but that may not be the service that we ever use under the contract. So how do we manage that?
So it's a goal. We give it, at the PRG, we give the subcontracting categories for consideration, but they are open to find opportunity in any subcategory with as long as they meet the goal, but it is a goal. So we do our best at PRG to identify those subcontracting goals, but they can meet it, however, as long as it's with a certified vendor in that category of work.
Yeah, and if throughout the life of the contract, OEC tracks how the goal is going as well to try to make sure that they're making assignments so that they can achieve the goal. Allocating, like if certain sub goals, they know they have a need for particulars. Hey, this firm is on your contract and they have surveying capabilities. We need a survey done. They'll use a specific contract that may be behind to try to catch it up. And if it's clear that there's going to be an issue with it, then we try to work with the contractor, in this case the consultants, to modify their MBE plan to be able to still achieve the goals. So we monitor it and try to work it ourselves too, and not just leave it out there like it's a goal. If you don't make it, you don't make it. There's a lot of work through the life of the contract to try.
And I would also just stress that it is a goal. It would be unconstitutional to make it a mandate. However, we do our best, and our staff does their best to make sure that they meet the goals so that we can achieve them.
I do want to circle back to Member Gaines. I have found the SBR eligibility criteria. So the business has to be independently owned and operated and not a subsidiary of another business. Not dominant in its field of operation at the national level. And for an A&E operations, the business did not employ more than 100 persons, or the gross sales of the business did not exceed an average of $4.5 million in the most recently completed 3 fiscal years.
Not totally, but 4.5 per year, or is it 4.5 over 3 years?
An average in its
Average.
of the
Average.
3.
So it's per year. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, I think when we passed, Jim, and I'm sure you increased it when you were there, the legislature, it was 5%, 10%, 15%, now 20 as far as the goals. And I think it's goals that we actually passed in the legislature. I mean, it could be a mandate, but it was a attainable goal because of the federal law. Am I correct?
So, the way the federal system's set up, the DBE,
Yeah,
that's all controlled by the feds, and there's a very prescribed
right.
criteria with regard to DBE. With regard to MBE, there is no mandate, it has to be a goal.
Right.
There's no penalty for not making it, in other words.
Right.
You might recall that we're also mandated to use Maryland Works for a lot of contracts unless they deny the fact that they can perform the work. They used to be part of the MBE program and the goals. Legislature took that out. So where we were up around 25, 30% at one time, with the mandate of using them, not being able to use them for the goals, those figures came down a bit. But I would say that we probably have one of the more robust programs in the nation for MBEs and SBRs.
We were one of the first to actually pass it.
So the way it works is not every state has an MBE program because you have to do a disparity study, and that disparity study would show that there's inequities between the minority community and the majority community. And if you cannot prove disparity, you cannot have a program, according to the Constitution. And so, like I said, many states do not have them. We are one of those states that does have one. The goal, however, would be able to achieve a level where you do not have disparity anymore. That's the real goal. Some folks lose sight of that, but the key is you want everybody to be involved, and when you achieve that level of involvement from everyone, then you would not be able to meet the disparity threshold, and you would not be able to have a program.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay, entertain a motion, or do we have a motion?
I will move for approval of MDTA-2019-0. There you go.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Did good, Donna. Next order of business, don't leave your seat, Donna,
Hold on.
is the procurement report on all open contracts. It's verbal. Go ahead, Donna.
Yes, in accordance with the operating policy, it's time for our quarterly report. At this time, we have 226 contracts in the amount of $3.71 billion. I won't read the numbers out. You guys have it in front of you. There are 15 MOUs, 80 architects and engineering contracts, 53 construction contracts, 24 maintenance, 24 services, and 30 IT. Of the $3 billion, $1.6 million has been paid, $889 million has been obligated, and $447 million is still remaining on the balance of the BPOs.
And with the page number again?
Paid number, $1,635,061,124.99. Any questions?
Any other questions from the board? Okay,
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you all
Donna.
very much.
thank you. Next order of business is approval, debt policy, annual review of MDTA's debt policy which establishes the guidelines for a financing program. Alan Garman.
Great. Thank
Good
you,
to see you
everyone.
again, Alan.
Thank you. So our debt policy review is required by the board operating policy and also the debt policy itself. We reviewed this in detail recently with the Finance Committee. There were also a review done with our outside municipal advisor and internal staff. No changes to the policy are recommended at this time. I just wanted to highlight a few of the key elements, and they're in that table there, that the policy includes state law references. So for instance, our bond cap is in state law. The unrestricted cash target is in there as well. Debt service coverage target, a level debt service goal, and then other elements about variable rate debt and credit ratings goal. I would say that in general, the policy's goal is really to help to maintain, a high credit quality for the agency, and that helps to ensure capital market access for our financings at the lowest possible financing rates. So our recommendation is to approve the policy for the next 12 months and open it to any questions.
Any questions?
Alan, where are we at the cap at this point?
We're a little over 2 billion, so as the agency continues to finance new projects, that will have to be revisited, at some point in the future.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the debt policy.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Excuse me, Chairman, we missed who motioned. Motion and seconded.
And Jeff Rosen?
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Okay. Next order of business, approval of quarterly review of the investment strategy, approval to continue with the current investment strategy. Alan Garman.
Great, thank you. So this is our quarterly strategy approval request. We're seeking an approval to continue with all of the strategies for the various accounts. There's no changes in strategy or benchmarks that are recommended. Like the other items that I'm presenting today, we review these in more detail with the Finance Committee, and the committee members supported a continuation of the strategies. I just highlight that the longer duration strategies that are employed in certain reserves generate higher return volatility, but with the expectation of higher average annual returns over multi-year periods. Two key points are that over the trailing 12 months, the investments conform to investment policy limitations. The portfolio structuring by account adhered to the board-approved strategies and should remain consistent. Our investment strategy is really driven by the trust agreement. It sets forth legal limitations on types of securities and maturity limitations as well. So for our operating debt service and certain reserves, capital construction, the policy really prescribes a matched funding approach. So our investments tend to be very short-term and they're matched to projected outflows. For the longer-term reserves, the policy really prescribes or directs us to look to a total return consideration, and that's permitted also in the trust agreement. So of the $826 million in the portfolio at the end of the June, the bulk of that $476 million is invested on a matched funding basis. So that's the money in the operating account, the capital construction funds, and the debt service funds. The remaining $350 million that's held in our two longer-term reserves, the general and the M&O reserve, and that's invested longer term for total return. The three key points about the total return accounts is that there is a volatility and return trade-off associated with those longer-term structures. Again, the accounts benefit from higher average annual returns over multi-year periods relative to shorter maturity benchmarks. And I think maybe the most important point is that these duration targeted portfolios should remain a consistent structure, and our management does not attempt to time the market or interest rate changes by changing strategy. The specific strategy for the general account is we have a benchmark of 1 to 5 year agency securities. So the portfolio is essentially has a duration target of approximately 3, and it has staggered maturities from 1 to 5 years. The smallest reserve is about 6% of the whole portfolio. That's the M&O reserve. It's about $50 million, and that has our longest benchmark. We use a 1 to 13 year strip index, Treasury strip index. So the average maturity is approximately 7.5 years. These two strategies, the general account strategy has not changed in many years. And if you all recall, the M&O reserve strategy changed in 2020, and it's remained consistent since that time. So our recommendation is to approve a continuation of the strategies and benchmarks for the current quarter. Are there any questions?
Question, yeah. Alan, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, in today's financial atmosphere of rising interest rates, does that affect how you invest how much you put into longer term? I mean, you kind of, the policy sort of implies that longer term investments will create a higher return. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case in the next couple of years. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, our approach has been a long-term one, not to look at sort of individual monthly returns or even
Right.
single-year returns, to look at multi-year returns. So certainly you're accepting sort of that return volatility of having negative returns, bigger swings to positive returns. But we looked at, 40 years of index data some years ago and reviewed that with the board. And so we communicated, hey, these were some of the worst years that we saw. This is what multi-year returns look like. And this is the return differential in dollar terms for accepting that single month or single quarter or single year return in exchange for multi-year returns. And so I think back to your point is that it looks like the Fed's going to continue tightening in this, high inflation environment, but rates, have remained relatively low. They're, 3-ish% on the long end. What's happened typically when we've kind of run into a tightening cycle is that you run into a recession and then rates fall again. And so I think that's the reluctance of the investment committee to try to time the market,
Right.
because it looks like rates are going to continue to rise, but quickly after that they could fall again. And then if we were to change strategy and suddenly go short, we might miss out on the subsequent rally when rates fall again. So that's really the goal of maintaining that consistent strategy and not trying to more or less time the market, even though at times it looks like that's maybe
Right.
the best course.
But we're holding all these issues to maturity anyway, aren't we?
That's primarily the case. There are relative value swaps where we might swap from one 2-year security to another because it yields more. But I mean, you're right, over the longer term, you essentially earn the weighted average yield of all those investments that you bought, despite that, volatility of return.
Thank you.
Any other question?
I imagine all the investments that are maturing, we're rolling into higher interest rate securities, so even if it may go up a little more, if we hit a recession, it goes down, now we're to the plus on the total return.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, if you think about our return, it's been around for the longest portfolio general account, it's sort of averaged near the benchmark around 1-ish% where prevailing rates are. And that's our expected return in our forecast. And so as long as we can kind of earn that over multi-year periods, we feel comfortable with that. And slowly, returns may migrate higher as interest rates are higher and we're reinvesting coupon income and maturities.
I think it's important to, kind of going back to the prior item, our investment portfolio is inherently a pretty conservative portfolio that relies on relatively stable investments anyway. So, when I first started in this role, I was trying to find out if we could be day traders and make more money. But our investment options are rather limited anyway because of our trust agreement and some of the policies that we need to have anyway. And so I think it's, the idea of trying to beat the market with such a conservative portfolio is sort of counterproductive as well, and I think it's worth highlighting.
Yeah. And I think we have one of the best in the business when it comes to financial services, and having come from the private sector here, but every investment advisor I've ever heard would tell you never try to time the market, because one thing's going to be for sure: you're not going to be able to do it, and you'll probably lose. But I think, Alan, when we looked at the long-term strategy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of remember there were like 2 down years in that 30-year period or so, but every other year was an up year.
Yeah, I think we looked at sort of short-term indices, intermediate out to long-term, and the shortest index, never had a negative year because it's essentially almost like cash equivalents. And as you step out, you would get, indices that had, negative return years. And as you went out farther, you even had indexes that had 2 successive years of negative returns. And so, that's the volatility you're accepting in the longer term. Mm-hmm. But what we also tried to equate it to was, well, how much additional return did those longer term indexes earn? And in dollar terms on that reserve, we're, at times we're trying to keep pace with inflation the best we can. What did that equate to in dollar terms? And so, there's certainly some indices in there, and like for our longer term portfolios where, they could very well have 2 successive years of negative returns, but comparing that to sitting in cash for many years, there's a very material difference in the extra income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of like the dollar cost averaging type model, right? Where you're just averaging all your returns, and at the end of the day, having that longer term perspective, you yield more money at the end of the day.
Right. I think, we forecast in our financial forecast for 6 years plus. We build capital assets that last for many decades, and so these reserves, and that was one of the points in here, are very long term. We need to maintain those reserves to maintain access to the capital markets. There are support, and so we need to view those reserves similarly, in a very long-term perspective, and try to, sort of maximize the return given the volatility tolerance that we have.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
I would just like to add a couple of quick comments from the Finance Committee standpoint. There was a lot of discussion about this at the Finance Committee meeting. We certainly recognize we have a very talented team internally here at MDTA, and Mr. Chairman, you just mentioned that, and others, Alan and others, and they support this, staying with the longer duration, and then on top of that, having our advisors support this. There didn't seem to be any objection to that at the Finance Committee meeting. But we certainly, we wanted the board to, the full board to give their input, and I think Member Gaines had a few good comments there, and so that's where we were. I don't know if anybody on the Finance Committee wants to add to that, but so that's why I think that we weren't against this path, so.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Member Von Paris, because we did have an outside consultant review this recommendation. So independent, third party, looking at this, and that's what they do for a living. And they agreed with our team here at MDTA that that was the right approach. So I feel even better about that. I mean, I know we have a very, very talented group. Again, having Alan come from the private sector, very, very bright. But even to have on top of that, like belts and suspenders, if you will, a third-party independent review agree that this is a good approach for this organization, just gives great comfort moving forward. Is that it?
Great.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the investment strategy.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. You're on a roll, Alan. Don't mess it
Excellent.
up. Next order of business is approval, investment policy update to MDTA's investment policy and establishes guidelines for safeguarding and management of the MDTA's cash and investments. Alan, you're up again.
Great, thank you. This is, we try to keep the debt policy and the investment policy together because they come up for annual review and it's a little more convenient for the board and us. So the investment policy itself requires an annual review and it's part of the board's operating policy as well. We're not recommending any changes at this time, and like the other two items, this was reviewed with the Finance Committee at the recent meeting. There was one technical correction to a statutory reference that's changed over time, but I don't really view that as anything significant. Our policy's foundation is really in state law that helped create the trust agreement at its inception. So there are legal limitations that are in the policy, and then the policy is essentially a refinement of what's in the trust agreement. So I just want to highlight a few of the key sections. There was a comment from Will about our investments being conservative. So that's very true. It's primarily U.S. government agencies and treasuries. So from a credit perspective, it's very conservative policy. So we have security type limitations. There are maturity limitations as well by account. So that's where you get the matched funding approach from, and then more latitude in the longer term reserves. There are diversification requirements that avoid concentrations to particular issuers. There are reporting requirements to this board, and there are requirements to report any policy violations or significant downgrades in credit quality of our holdings. So I'll just point out that we don't have any changes. The strategy that we talked about is really starts with the investment committee, it moves on to the finance committee, and then is ultimately approved by the board. But its foundation really is in the trust agreement and then refined by this investment policy. So we'd like to open it up to questions.
Any questions from the board members? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Been
Second.
moved and seconded for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Good job.
Thank you, everybody.
Got them all through. Okay, next order of business is an update from the Human Resources Committee. Member Carroll, who is joining us by phone. It's all yours.
Good morning, Board. As you can imagine, it'd be hard to replace Member Gaines in any capacity, but I did my best chairing the committee in his absence. With that stated, I'd just like to quickly run through the items that we covered, and then certainly welcome any feedback and comment that you have. First thing that we talked about was the classification and compensation update. We will provide a robust update and summary of the classification actions related to the Easy Pass support manager, as well as the new prevailing hiring rate, level setting the facility maintenance technicians and facility maintenance supervisor positions. Next, we covered the career counseling update, which was also a pretty informative, insightful, and robust update. Got an overview of the training and career development activities to be carried out by the career counselor. I think there were a couple of new staff members introduced during this time as well. And we were advised of the newly developed career readiness workshop for toll collection staff and shared the positive feedback about that workshop. Certainly that's the continuation of the effort to make sure that for all those who are ready and able, the toll collection transition from manual to electronic, those people would have gainful employment within the MDTA or other state agencies. Next, we had a career development program update, and information was shared, data from or for the employees who participated in the CDP, and outlined the positive attrition rates and as such that came through the program. Then we covered the employee relations update. We provided an update on 3 projects that are underway in the unit, the standard operating procedure update, along with the Pulse Performance Appraisal e-filing project, in addition to the Essential Employee Acknowledgement e-filing project. Those were all covered extensively as well. And then lastly, we got some updates on recruiting and vacancy. Tanya provided an extensive update relative to the vacancy rates and some of the challenges and opportunities we have on the go forward as we look to fill all of those open and vacant positions within the MDTA. And with that, I'll open it up to questions or comments that anybody may have.
Any questions for Member Carroll? Comments? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Looks good. All right, thank you. Next order of business, Executive Director's Report. Will Pines.
All right. Well, good morning again, board members. It's been a busy time for all of us at the MDTA, and especially since our last board meeting. I'll start with an update on our customer assistance plan that's ongoing and will continue over the next 3 months. Next week, as we have done every month, we'll provide another one of our update news releases that'll inform customers and remind the public that there's 3 months remaining to pay their video tolls while the civil penalty waiver grace period is in effect, and be able to have those penalties waived. In addition to the media receiving those news releases, we also have been emailing elected officials so that they can share this information with their constituents as well. We also, in our mailers, for each notice of toll due, we've been including buck slips that remind customers of the customer assistance plan. And we recently sent an Act Now letter to all customers with video tolls who've yet to make payments on their tolls. So that's another direct reminder to them. And that's since the program has started. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We're actively engaging our customers and the public to create awareness about this limited time opportunity to pay their toll debt, and related to creating the opportunity for them to have their civil penalties waived before the end of the waiver period. Staying on the topic of our communications and our great communications team, I have some updated statistics on the current Drive Easy MD program, Easy Pass education, and our Bay Bridge travel campaign, the marketing that we've done for those programs. Our Drive Easy MD education campaign is currently focusing on that civil penalty waiver period and the benefits that early payments can make for customers, where they get that 15% discount if they pay prior to our mailing of that notice of toll due. The campaign features digital media, out-of-home, radio, and print, and we currently are around midpoint of the campaign that will run all the way through that November period. Some of you may have seen some of our messages even coming into the building here. We have billboards out on 95 and 895 corridors that are advertising that program as well around not just the Point Breeze complex, but for everybody in the Baltimore region. We Also have had more than 110,000 visits to our website from our digital ad placement. It's software that provides an automated centralized media buying from multiple sources. From the placement, we've had more than 17,000 EasyPass signups since the Drive Easy MD program has launched, and 34,000 visitors to the pay tolls section of the website, and more than 147,000 interactions with our pixels. And just for your own knowledge, a pixel interaction indicates that the internet user clicked through from the ad that we had that they saw and visited our destination page that we were trying to get them to go to. So pretty good traction there. Our Bay Bridge travel campaign runs from May through September, and we utilize digital media, out-of-home, radio, and grassroots. We do everything from our typical billboards, radio ads, and digital messaging to things that are all the way to having our grassroots partners handing out tip cards and promo items to persons walking on the boardwalk, and papering local area businesses, partners, and with those types of marketing pieces. I'm going to talk about Mako a little more in a moment, but I just wanted to highlight, related to our comms team, I actually personally, while I was in OC, saw our marketing on the tram and on the Seaboard in OC. So I got a little bit of a kick out of that, took some pictures and thanked our team for that. It was really great. Those are high visibility where, you know, the tram is going back and forth routinely across the entire boardwalk, and the Seaboard goes up and down the length of Ocean City out in the water. So if you're sitting on the beach or walking the boardwalk, you almost can't avoid seeing our information about our Bay Bridge travel campaign. Our communications division also worked to support recent MDTA recruitment campaign. Our comms division partnered with human resources and operations staff to help promote our August 17th hiring event. And that event was specifically for hiring facility maintenance technicians, which is one of our higher vacancy positions that we actually talked about at the HR committee. The event was held at the ICC, and comms team helped with digital and social boosting ads that ran from August 3rd through the 17th, which was the day of the event. In only 5 days, there were more than 480,000 impressions of our ads. Thanks to the collective efforts of our HR, operations, and communications team, the hiring event was a huge success. We had 120 persons invited to interview, 28 applied on the spot, 57 were interviewed on the spot, and all turned out to be eligible to move forward in processing. We're extremely hopeful that this will help us put a big dent in our vacancy needs from the successful efforts that the team made through this event. And I want to personally thank those in attendance who had a big part in that, Joey, Tanya, and Kelly, for their efforts in supporting the event. A lot of work and thoughtfulness went into this. I mean, following up, we had, with that many people, you can imagine in a single hiring event, showing up to be interviewed, they had a certain panel number expecting the volume of people, and they had to on the spot form an extra team just to handle the volume of interviews. So really great work for the team, proud of that, and we're going to look to try to hit some of our other big, positions and do similar types of events in other regions outside of the ICC. So as a transportation professional with my background, I enjoy talking about transportation projects of all kinds, but specifically MDTA projects. At this month's Capital Committee meeting, Member Gangemi asked us if we'd highlight some of the notable achievements on the I-895 bridge and Baltimore Harbor Tunnel Rehabilitation Project, which Bill Rando, one of our Deputy Directors of Construction, had presented on at that meeting. So here I am jumping at the chance to highlight this project. Again, the achievements that we had. The project was large and very complicated. It consisted of replacing the Canton Viaduct Bridge, the Holabird Avenue ramp, and rehabilitating the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel. The project crossed 23 railroad tracks, 3 interstate ramps, and 3 city streets. And the stakeholders in this project were obviously many. We had, Baltimore City, 4 separate railroad companies, BG&E, and many businesses throughout the corridor. was a very complex and, in the end, award-winning project that came in under the $189 million budget, and both the bridge and the tunnel work were completed ahead of schedule. So just really top-shelf work from our entire team. We talked about that under budget, ahead of schedule performance, which we've seen on a number of our projects, way ahead of schedule on the single lane project on westbound. And so far it's looking good for some of our other notable big projects that I know the board is interested in knowing when we're going to be done, but coming soon. So, sure, absolutely.
The reason why he brought that up is I thought it was very important, after hearing this presentation, we don't toot our own horn enough. That project was extremely complex, and as he said, so many stakeholders. I thought it was very important that we got to let not just the board know, but we got to let the world know that we know what we're doing here. Under budget and under schedule. I mean, that's ahead of schedule. That's great news. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I want to add on to that because to see a project like 895, which goes under 95 and over railroad tracks, people could not understand the complexity of that. And it's got a bend in it to boot. And just seeing that complex construction going on, I can only say that our team did a phenomenal job with that. By the way, Will, I haven't had a chance to tell you, but as secretary, I'm on the NEC board, so Northeast Corridor for Amtrak. And other railroads, and I've had actual conversations with the CEO of Amtrak about the problems that we ran into with regard to flaggers on the rail system and how it impedes our ability to get our projects done on time in many cases, and could cause delays, which costs us money. Through our development and construction community. So not only that, I'm also on the board of ASHTO, and we've had those conversations now nationally, because we are not the only ones that are running into problems with that, with the railroads. It's actually a national problem, and FRA was also in those same meetings and heard that same thing. So I think we're going to see at least some more cooperation in that respect.
Yeah, we had a lot of upfront work on this project with, this project with 4 separate railroads. We had construction agreements, right of entry agreements, real estate agreements. I mean, you name it. We were dealing with folks from CSX in Jacksonville, Florida,
Yep.
all over the country, trying to make sure that we had a clean project. And flagging operations was a really big part of that. Some of the railroads are doing better than others, so they each have their own flavor in how they approach providing flaggers. Some want you to get done and get out right away so that they can keep their operation going. Some want to provide the absolute minimal number of resources necessary to keep it as low cost for them as possible. And so our team balanced all of that, dealing with the different stakeholders to get to a ahead of schedule outcome, which is, and I think not just ahead of schedule, but the fact that it was a short project duration as well. We knew this was going to be a traffic impactful project, and we compressed the schedule as much as we could and beat that goal. So really great job from our team.
I agree.
Also, another board member request. At last month's board meeting, Member Rosen asked that we continue to keep the board informed on customer service metrics that were part of our prior 3G reporting updates. So I'm happy to report that the customer assistance plan is still working, and our call wait times continue to exceed the KPI metrics for the project. We've seen a slight increase in call volume, and the contributors of that increase is both that we every summer see an uptick in volumes as people are traveling more for vacations, so more tolls are generated in the summer, and inherently you get more calls. That's normal. That ebb and flow happens common throughout the tolling industry. But we also sent I've talked about that personalized reminder that we sent, that Act Now letter to those who have yet to make payments. And so we did, by that letter, generate an uptick in call volumes for folks who are fortunately taking the opportunity to pay their tolls. For August, the average wait was 25 seconds with a total of 275 call agents present. And notice of toll due is still the #1 reason for customers calling into the call center. We continue to focus on our efforts to reduce the number of video toll customers by encouraging Easy Pass and pay-by-plate options for sign-up, so that customers can ultimately avoid the hassle of notices of toll due and not need to call at all for their typical account maintenance. As Executive Director, I have the honor of attending the MDTA police events, and on August 10th, I attended the MDTA Police 2022 promotional ceremony, where 8 of our MDTA police employees, 4 officers, and 4 dispatchers were officially promoted to new duty assignments. I feel a tremendous sense of gratitude whenever I have the opportunity to attend any of these police events. The sacrifice that these individuals make in the name of public safety is really incredible. These promotional events recognize these employees that follow a competitive process to get the promotion, and just honor them for them stepping into leadership roles within the MDTA police. Last month, I also mentioned that on August 20th, the Maryland House was once again serving the rest and gathering point for the America's 9/11 ride. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend due to the Mako Summer Conference conflict, but by all accounts, it went off as a huge success. First, I want to thank Simon Najjar, our MDTA's Travel Plaza Administrator, the MDTA Police, the Maryland State Police, and our Northern Region team, headed by JFK's Facility Administrator, John Lohmeyer. For this event, they themselves and their teams contributed a great deal to the success of the event. Our Northern Region team did a fantastic job of getting the Maryland House ready to go for the event, and the Northern Region operations included support for lot closures, messaging boards, traffic management, convoy coordination, and coordination with various law enforcement, permitting, on-site personnel, you name it. There was a lot of work done to help support this event by our team. MDTA Police provided an escort for the convoy, and the Maryland State Police assisted with support during the cleanup at night before the traffic drag for that day of the event. Simon reported that there were approximately 400 attendees, 105 civilian bikers, 600 police escorts, 85 passenger vehicles, plus support vehicles and emergency services. Aries USA, the Travel Plaza concessionaire, provided bottled water, donuts, and other breakfast items to our riders in the convoy. And the Sunoco Faisal Enterprises coordinated to have the pumps set aside so that the riders and those part of the staff would have sort of premium service. They also provided increased staffing for the event. The America's 9/11 ride started on Thursday, August 18th in Shanksville, Pennsylvania site, which was the site of the Flight 93 Memorial, and then proceeded the next day to the Pentagon Memorial in Arlington, Virginia. The riders departed early Saturday morning and stopped at the Maryland House with a final stop in New York City. The ride closed on Sunday, August 21st, with a memorial service held at the World Trade Center. The MDTA is proud to have our role in this event, and we look forward to next year. I talked a little bit about Summer Mako, and just will add a little bit more to that. Mary and I had the pleasure of joining our Easy Pass outreach team, which included Tim Sheets and Tim Wendt. We called them the Tims, and Mary had Tim 1 and 2, but I couldn't keep up with who that actually was for the event. They attended the conference along with other MDOT TBUs, and we had the great pleasure of being joined by Member Cox and Gangemi, who helped staff the Easy Pass exhibition table. We had a lot of positive engagements, gave away a bunch of mounting strips, and sold 20 on-the-go transponders. And
Gave away 20 transponders. We don't sell them, right?
they put their replenishment out.
Yeah.
They put,
Sold them on the idea, there you go. I just want to make sure for everybody listening out there,
yeah.
that they're
When we
free.
say sold, they're
Yeah.
free, but you do have to preload them with your $20.
Correct,
when you get
correct.
them. So, and I'm delighted today to report that after some creative accounting, Member Cox recorded the win over Member Gangemi in selling trans. Or at least that's what I was
Wow.
It's all creative accounting.
You know, not to interrupt, Mr. Executive, but
Here we go.
you know, the Chief of Staff, Mary, and the two Tims, and, you know, it was great competition between Member Gangemi and myself, but the highlight at the last day, he and I had the pleasure of the Secretary welcomed the governor and all the team, but he came over, and Mary and Mary and I, we had the pleasure of having our picture taken with the two Tims with the pig, okay? So while I was there, Mary and I mentioned to the governor, you know, January the 18th is coming up, and you're probably going to need an easy pass. And don't forget to sign up.
That's great.
Yeah, so no sore feelings about whoever actually won, but it was great, and we really appreciate it.
MDTA won,
Exactly.
and the customers won.
We also participated in 14 county meetings where we were able to update the county leaders on MDTA projects in their counties and hear from them about their transportation priorities for their counties. And we do have some follow-up items that we're working through from MACO that, you know, based on the discussions with the counties, and we look forward to meeting with them again at the upcoming CTP meetings. So that's sort of what we recently accomplished, lots of activity there. Looking ahead, next week we'll be issuing our Labor Day press release reminding drivers of the best times to travel and important safety reminders throughout that holiday period while traveling on our roadways. Also coming up in September, there are 3 Bay Crossing Tier 2 NEPA open houses. The first one is a virtual open house on September 7th. The next 2 open houses are in person, one on September 8th at the Kent Island American Legion Post 278, and the last open house is scheduled on September 13th at the Broadneck High School in Anne Arundel County. All information on these events is available on our website, baycrossingstudy.com. And all of the meetings, virtual and in person, will run between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And board members are welcomed and absolutely encouraged to attend if you'd like. However, if you're not able to attend, the boards for the meeting that will be presented there are already posted on the website, baycrossingstudy.com, so you can view them now if you're interested in learning more about what we accomplished in Tier 1 and what to look forward to in the Tier 2 process. And also, comment forms are open now where comments can be provided by members or the public to provide input on that Tier 2 study all the way out until October 14th when that comment period will close. As you can see, we've been really active since the July board meeting with some great opportunity activities coming up, but I'm not quite done yet. There were 2 community initiatives that were MDOT driven as a whole, but the MDTA was able to participate in those events, and they speak really volumes about the generosity of our workforce and the care that we as an employee team have for others. This was the second year that MDOT partnered with the Maryland State Department of Education and the Boys and Girls Club of Maryland for a back-to-school drive that ran from July 11th through the 29th. Collection boxes were available at the MDOT headquarters and TDU locations throughout the state, including our facilities and customer service centers, and to where anybody coming into our facilities could also donate in addition to our employees making donations. More than $2,000 in monetary donations from state employees, residents, and businesses were collected to fill 1,000 bags, which will be distributed to youth who participate in the Boys and Girls Club throughout the state. I want to thank the entire MDTA team for those who made donations on this MDOT-wide initiative. The board also may be aware of some of you may be aware of the details, especially those who participated at MACO, but I feel like it's my duty to just echo this really important program that Jim, as our chairman, has helped lead. He refers to it as Jim talking trash.
Jim Port's talking trash.
Jim Port's talking trash. And so he's kicked off a new litter campaign, and MDTA is fully backing and supporting this, and I wanted to highlight that to the board. So I figured I'll turn it over to Jim now to really talk about the details of that, since it's really great program to highlight.
Well, I'll be glad to do that, but Will, I just have a couple questions. So I just want to make sure I understand the customer service program that we have and the Act Now issues, or I guess mailers have been going out. Do we have numbers on how many people have not taken action, if you will, to pay their back tolls? And if we do we have it like how many people have not done it for 6 months versus 5 months versus 4 months?
I don't have the breakdown with me like that.
Oh, I
but-
know you wouldn't
but
have it here, but
I do know that we sent out 1.3 million Act Now letters. Those were sent to individuals who have accumulated video tolls since February and have made no payments to date.
and then I guess my final question is, well, it may not be the final, but do we have some of those customers, do they have very large bills?
It varies. There are some that have a high volume of tolls. You may have seen images of customers complaining that they received boxes in the mail. And, we have all of our press releases and the Act Now letter have encouraged customers to pay incrementally over time. As you may recall, the intent of the customer assistance plan and the waiver program as a whole is to create essentially a temporary payment plan for
Right.
customers. They would have this
9
9-month
months.
period to make payments over time. And we were able to see, there are folks that have a lot of tolls and are not doing that. They're not paying it down at all. Some are maybe waiting and saving it, having an investment account, growing funds, and they're going to pay us on November 30th. But, we are concerned that that may not be the case, and don't want to have customers who put themselves in a bad position. So we sent those tailored letters specifically to those customers who have not made payments on their accumulated tolls and not taking advantage of the program, so that we give them at least a tailored reminder to start making payments so that they pay it off in time.
I'm wondering if it would be beneficial, because some people get mail, they think it's junk mail, right? Whatever it is, but if there's a certain threshold of what they owe, if it would be beneficial to send them some kind of a certified letter or some kind of signatory letter that we would make sure reach them, because we work very closely with the press. And that's with the various news stations, the written press, others, about this program, a 9-month opportunity. And for those people who are not taking advantage of it, it's a little discouraging, obviously. I think that we've gone above and beyond trying to help these customers, but at the end of the day, it's about personal responsibility, right? And they have to take advantage of the program. But I want to make sure we try and make every effort to make sure they understand how great this assistance program is and how it can be advantageous to them. But again, at the end of the day, they have to pay their bill. They have to pay their fair share, just like every one of our other customers. So I just want to take advantage of doing everything we can, humanly possible, to make sure they understand.
I agree with what you just said, and I think, Will, I know you've mailed, all the information to elected officials, but another follow-up, and it's now only 3 months away
Yep.
till this project ends, and we have many people that have not taken advantage of it. So if you know of constituents that have contacted you, please take advantage of this program. I think, and then that notifies them that we have done everything in the last 9 months or 6 months now to try to reach, out to these customers. Thank you.
I wonder if would we be able to get statistics by legislative jurisdiction and let individual legislators know, senators and delegates, how many people in their districts have not taken advantage of it, and then so that they can encourage their constituents through mailings and their communication services.
So those legislative districts just changed, so that may be a little bit of a tall order. However, I do like the idea of possibly doing it by county. That may be, because, they're representing the entire county at the end of the day as a county delegation. So I think that would be doable.
We have we have zip code information, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, but zip codes cross legislative lines.
Right.
Several in many cases.
Yeah, we'll make a solid attempt to deliver on the intent of the request here to see if there's more we can do here in terms of legislative coordination and also possibly the certified letters. So, yep, we'll look into those items and try to deliver on that. I will say again that, I think you kind of had to live under a rock at this point and throw away all of your mail to not know about it. If you go onto our website at all and try to log into an account, or there's banners, there's things that scroll. If you go to the Pay My Tolls, it pops up an alert. There's really no way to enter our website and not see that this program exists. We're mailing directly. We have giant billboards alerting people. We're doing just about everything we can to let people know about it. And frankly, I think, like Jim alluded to, it's a conscious choice by some not to pay. And unfortunately, we've always had to lean on collections activities and vehicle suspensions in order to be able to collect from some. And sadly, while those activities are suspended now, there will be those that don't take advantage of the program. We will have to resume those.
And well, maybe if we do decide to do the certified or whatever the signatory letter might be, it may be good to note what their payment would be if they paid it now, and what their payment's going to be December 1st if they do not pay it, which would include penalties. And I think maybe showing them the significant savings that they can have if they take action over the next 3 months, maybe it'll get some people to move.
Including payment info on the letters has been really challenging because there are different kinds of customers. There are customers that just habitually try to not pay their tolls. And when we send a letter, if they've continue to accrue tolls,
Yes.
now they have a letter that looks like they owe less money than they really
Right,
do.
right.
So we've struggled with that a little
But we
bit.
could say as of this date. This is what you owe as of this date. And I'm really only talking about the ones who owe a certain threshold, whatever that threshold is that you may try to achieve, not every single letter, because that would be nearly impossible. But we could say as of this date, and we could put a note in there saying any tolls that have accumulated past this date are not included in this letter. And then we'd be fine. I think we can figure that out.
So, for some of the larger accounts, just an important point too is a number of them are businesses.
Businesses.
Commercial
No, I
accounts.
understand.
And so we are trying to reach settlements with some of them as well to resolve their historical toll debt. Many of them leverage private entities to help manage their tolls, and sometimes that goes well and sometimes it doesn't. So we're working with them directly in a number of cases.
It's their account, they gotta figure it out. Yes, sir.
I have a comment if I can.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
What forms of contact information do we have for the customer? Do we have email addresses? Do we have
That-
phone numbers?
That depends. So
They have an account.
with the new customers, since the launch of Drive Easy MD, we've instituted certain mandatory fields like phone numbers and emails to ensure that we always have that information. However, data that migrated over historically, we didn't always mandate that for everyone. So there are some legacy accounts that we don't have some certain information on. But in most instances, customers, we do have emails for, and we do reach out to them via email whenever we can, partly because it helps us save on our correspondence,
Right.
but also because that's identified as their preferred method. But within the communications, we give them the option of how they want to be communicated. What is their best means to receive communications from us? And we have options for Sims text and email and mailing correspondence if that's the preferred method.
I
If
guess-
they have an account with us.
If they don't have an account, that's a good point.
I just want to I would be clear.
The folks that's a great point actually, Jim, because the folks that we're talking about here are video tools.
Video tools.
Okay.
So those customers, the only thing that we have is the mailing address that's on file with the MDA for the registered vehicle.
Mhm.
So if you didn't update your address and your son was driving the car and it wasn't you, and you know we hear it all with these kinds of cases. We don't have any other way to send it other than what's recorded with the MDA. We don't have an email from them. We don't have a phone number. That's it.
Well, I guess we're having a lot of success. Our wait time is down quite a bit. Without compromising that, if we could look at some of these businesses, would it not be to our advantage to get them on the phone? If we have the contact information, to call the big dollar accounts. I'm just saying, maybe consider it. Next thing you know, we're talking to person that owes us the entity that owes us a couple $1,000. But I wouldn't say do it all the way down, but to me, that's taking another proactive step forward. But I'm not saying, I'm just saying that it's what, from a business standpoint, I would take a look at that.
Yep, we can. I already know separate. This is typically handled separate from our call center. Our Easy Pass operations team, they have they're called account specialists. They help resolve some of these larger business cases, and they have been reaching out to some of them that we see who are eye-tolling a lot with an Easy Pass account, or that have outstanding video tolling that we try to resolve.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
How about, well, on the out-of-state? How successful have you been on notifying the out-of-state? Probably not having an easy pass, but again, video. Where does that stand? You know where we are as far as out-of-state and notifying the out-of-state people that
So the out-of-state customers receive the same notices. When I talked about that Act Now letter and the
Right.
1.3 million, that included both in-state and out-of-state.
Okay.
So we're full court press with both, treating them similarly. And we don't provide one notice for in-state and out-of-state. We treat them the same as our customers. We currently, you may recall, we have out-of-state debt collections as a recent authority that we received. We were planning to advertise a contract that's been put on hold, partly because of our recent advancements on payment plans and also because we've been suspending collections. But we are moving forward with that out-of-state debt collections contract so that we'll be poised in December to move forward with collections once this program ends.
Any other questions? All right, with that, I'll get back to Jim Porch talking trash. Look, nothing's more discouraging, in my opinion, than looking around the highway system and seeing trash all over the highway system, along with the county roads too. It's all over the place, and I personally don't understand what's so difficult about keeping the trash in your vehicle until you reach your destination and then properly putting it away in a trash can. So I decided to do something about it and be proactive. And so I went out with MDOT SHA crews and picked up trash personally, and you would not believe how much is out there. Quite frankly, how dangerous it is for our crews to be out there. They have to put a lot of equipment, attenuators and stuff like that out there, a lot of cones and everything to protect themselves. That's one factor. Obviously, it's horrible looking. We get a lot of complaints about it, but the highways are not creating this trash. People are creating this trash and throwing it out their windows. And so I did a video trying to introduce people to what a trash can looks like, as opposed to the highway system, which is not a trash can. And so hopefully that rings true, but more importantly, what we did is we create these bags, and we created two superheroes, Recycle Ruby and Can It Clay. And what we're trying to do is, one, give these bags away, which go right on the headrest. So you got the two prongs that come down from your headrest. You hang this on your headrest, hangs in back of the front seat. You can simply put your trash in the bag, a recyclable, reusable bag, and then till you reach your destination and dispose of it properly to help clean up. I want to stress that we spend about $7 million a year cleaning up trash. So about $60 million over the last 8 years. That's $60 million that we cannot use for vital projects throughout the state. I think we can have a much better use of $60 million than picking up trash from people who decide to throw it out. By creating the superheroes, and we'll have cutouts at the Maryland Fair. We're trying to get kids, if you will, to shame their parents into not throwing trash out on the highways. And so I'm really pushing this hard. We met with we met with 22 jurisdictions at MACO out of 24 that wanted to meet with us. We introduced this program to them. You can go on the website and see the video of me along with the SHA crews picking up litter. And I hate to say it, but it's such a waste of money. And we literally have to do something about it. So we are being proactive in our response, and you're going to see more and more about this as we move forward. So thank you, Will, for bringing that up. It's a very important program to me personally. It's a very important program for our state. And quite frankly, not only is it ugly and horrible to look at, but it fills our waterways. So we have that water runoff. It clogs our drains. When it clogs our drains, that's when you get water on the highway, which creates a very dangerous situation with hydroplaning. And then people complain to us about that. It's because they're throwing trash out into the drains. And of course, it ends up in the Chesapeake Bay and other waterways. So it's just environmentally bad. It's unsightly. It's unlawful. And it needs to stop. So anyway, I think we have bags for everybody. Not that you all throw your trash out the window. I know that. But we really want to promote this program and get it out there and get it moving. So anyway, that's my my 60-second commercial.
In closing, I'll just highlight, I'll share with the board members a copy of the video that Jim's referencing for your viewing pleasure. And that concludes my remarks this morning.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Will. We have now reached the closed session portion of our agenda. This closed session is scheduled for the board members and designated staff. For those persons in this room on live stream, as soon as we have completed the closed session, we'll be back in this room to ratify any actions that might have taken place in closed session and to continue with the remainder of the agenda in open session. So we appreciate your patience. Per Maryland Open Meetings Act, the MDTA Board will meet in closed session under the General Provisions Article Section 3-305B7 and 13 to discuss the results of an internal audit, related to the 3G contracts and implementation. With that, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded for closed session. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the time is now 10:19 a.m., and we will go into closed session.